Hey everyone, welcome to the program. I tried going live before, but nobody knows. So everything's fine now. I would like to introduce the star of today's program, Sasha Prakir. All right, so how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. A little tired. It's the end of the semester though, so excited to be done with the school year, and also excited to be here. So.
All right, for the viewers, please tell us your name, major, and age.
Yeah. So my name is Sasha Prakir. I'm majoring in political science, minoring in history, and I turned 18 in March.
Nice. So where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I originally grew up in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area in NorCal. I came down here specifically for EEP, so that transition was a big part of the draw of coming to EEP. Was relocating with my family and spending a lot of weekends back there and here. So that kind of travel aspect I feel is a little unique to me, as opposed to a lot of fellow Eepsters who come from the LA region. So
Yeah. So what were your expectations of EEP before joining versus what it was actually like?
yeah, so when I originally applied to EEP and before Honors Academy, I don't really think it set in the like what the program was. I think it was just a cool program that I thought I would apply for, see what I could get. But once I like the first day of Honors Academy and I was there, and then it really sunk in like, oh my god, this would be skipping high school and entering college, and it seemed a lot more daunting. I saw like all the mentors and all the other Honors Academy students, and I saw, wow, these are like well prepared people. They're socially adept people. But once I like got in, it you find your niche. You find your niche pretty easily, and you find your academic niche. You find the best ways that you can perform academically and the best ways that you can fit in socially, and you find friends. And it might seem daunting from the outside, but once you're in it, it's an amazingly supportive community, and it's the best place you can be.
Right. Awesome. So just going off of what you were saying, what did you find to be your niche?
Yeah. Well, for like social niche, I think I have some amazing friends. Luke and Milton are right in the audience right now. But I've found a lot of amazing friends who can support me, like emotionally, socially, pillars to lean on. And then academically, and I'm sure we're going to cover this later, but political science, history was really my niche. I think college allowed me to kind of focus in on that, as opposed to high school, which is a lot more broad. So I was able to really focus in on the subjects I really love to do. So that was two ways in which I was able to find like a niche and fit in it.
Yeah, totally. So what advice would you give yourself in your first semester of college when you're still sort of figuring out where you belong?
Right, right. Yeah. So one of the things about my first semester of college was that I was like figuring things out, and I was figuring them out kind of badly. And I went through all these. I remember for orientation, they would give us like a bunch of different pieces of paper for this is how you plan out your courses, this is how you apply for scholarships, this is how you do this and that. And I just I felt overwhelmed by it, and I took a step back and I started to kind of ignore it. And I would, in my first semester, I would tell myself not to ignore that stuff, not to feel daunted by it, but instead to really plan out, what I want to do. I originally wanted to do a double major, history and political science, but I found out I had too many credits previously that were transferring in, so I couldn't do a double major, it would overload the credits. So I had to step down to a history minor. But if I had planned it better and I had actually applied, then I could have gotten that double major to work. So things like that where I could have just spent more time and thought instead of taking the easy way out or feeling like overwhelmed. Because you might feel overwhelmed in the short term and it might be a large change from high school, but then in the long term, it's a real benefit for planning out your classes, your schedules, your major.
So you said for transferring in, was that?
Sorry, no, not sure. Like entering from middle school or high school.
Yeah. So had you already taken college courses at that point?
AP credits. AP credits.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, AP credits transferred, and then there were. I think the max is 144 or something, and then if you go over that, they don't let you do the majors that go over that. So.
So were you already in high school?
Yeah. So I was in 9th grade when I entered.
Okay.
So skipped 10th, 11th, 12th.
Nice. So let's say a student is deciding whether or not to apply to EEP. What do you think are the main qualifications and considerations to enter college at such a young age?
Yeah. So it's not what you expect. I think in terms of the qualifications, I don't think academic rigor it's big, and you should be academic. You should be a hard worker. You should know your stuff, but I don't think it's as big, and I don't think you should feel daunted by, oh my God, I'm not going to be smart, or I'm going to be the dumbest person in the room. I don't think that's ever going to be a concern if you're applying to this program in the first place. I think that being socially affable and being easy to connect with is definitely going to help you in getting in, and it's going to help you in the program. So that's something you should definitely have as a skill is being able to connect with people. It doesn't need to be everyone. You don't need to be like an extrovert, but you need to be able to connect with a few people and not completely, withdraw. Um, Something else I would find is don't go into EAP because you think it'll be cool, or you think it's a nice idea to skip 3 years of high school or 4 years of high school. Go in because you know this is what you positively want to do. It's not a negative, oh, I'm skipping something I don't want to do. It's I'm doing something I do want to do, if that makes sense.
Right.
So go in because you think high school is not for me. I think going into college right now is better. Go in because you think the social environment in EAP is really supportive and you would enjoy it. Go in because you think the opportunities at Cal State LA are something you want to pursue. Don't go in because you think it'll be really cool for me to skip 3 years of high school and just go straight into college. Or like I get to skip all the hard work of high school and go right into college. Don't do something like that.
Right, right. So, do you think you could elaborate a little more on those things that you said could be attractive about EAP?
Like
Like you said, the social
oh
environment, the
right right.
opportunities.
Yeah. So the social environment is very interesting, and I've never realized this because I was never a normal college student, right? But when you come into EAP, you come pre-printed with a year of your cohort, right? Of fellow people who were accepted in that year, and those are people you can make connections with and lean on, and that's not something you get right as a normal college student, or even as a high school student. You don't get this pre-assigned group of friends that you can connect with and have similar backgrounds to. So it's a very close cohort, right? There's only I don't even know 150 of us out of a campus of 27,000. It's very easy to make close connections within that group. So that's an amazing benefit that EAP can provide. And then academically, I know we have a lot of connections in terms of college gives you connections, right? You can apply for internships because of the flexibility, right? You can apply for internships. You can, I know our program specifically has connections to hospitals or for the STEM majors, but there's also humanity internships with elected offices, stuff like that. So there's a lot of opportunities where if you want those and if you think high school's not for me, I would really want more of experiential learning, I really want that flexibility, then it's definitely the right choice to be academically and professionally as well.
So, what are the pressures and freedoms that come with beginning college before the normal accepted age?
Yeah. So I think pressures, there is, there's, well, okay, let's do the freedoms first. First of all, your schedule is much more flexible than it would be in high school or middle school, and every college student knows you never take 8 a.m.s, but in high school those are like given. You always do 8 a.m.s. So that's just one example of there's a lot more flexibility here. You get a lot more time to figure out what you want to do, right? You're not taking a bunch of APs, you're not taking a bunch of pre-scheduled courses. You're picking and you're creating your own pathway to what you want to major in or do professionally. So that's a big freedom that you get. You also get social freedom to, again, connect with a group of friends. And I think EAP is largely free from a lot of the problems, social problems that a lot of Americans know exist in high school. I think EAP is, I'm not going to say completely free, but I think it's less of that in EAP. Pressures, there's the very technical issue of if you're under 18, there's like some internships you can't apply to. Although I'll talk more about that later. But there's like some internships and opportunities you might not be able to apply to. This has only come up very few times for me, but you might get condescended to by classmates who know, right, that you're younger or in professional opportunities you're working on campus or something, you might be condescended to. But I find that actually a large percent of the time people aren't saying, oh, you're young, you don't know things. They're saying, oh, you're young and you're on a college campus. Wow, that means you deserve to be here and you really worked for it, and they respect that. So there's a lot of flexibility. The pressure is academic. It's a major change, right?
Right.
And even if you are prepared academically, which I'm sure, if you're going to Honors Academy, if you're applying, you will be prepared academically. But you also need to be prepared for just the change of scheduling your own classes, applying for your own scholarships, whereas high school is a lot more structured and you don't need to really apply and go out to find these things as much.
Right. So it seems like entering into a completely different environment with a lot more freedom. How were you with that extra space to move around? Because I know for some people it's really great, but for others it can be sort of I have no idea what to do with myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the flexibility is both a blessing and a curse, because it's there, the flexibility is there, but you need to seize it, right? You need to go out and take it. So things like internships, right? They're not going to be handed to you. And I think for a long time I didn't want to go out and apply to internships. Or I didn't want to like email people and just like out of the blue and ask for opportunities or interview with people and all of that. But that's stuff you have to do in college, professionally, and in later career. And that's something it prepares you to do. Also friendships, right? Again, you have an amazing group of friends that you can connect with, but you have to go out and connect with them, right? They don't come to you. You have to connect with them. So it's about, you have those opportunities available to you. You have academic freedom. You can schedule classes, but you need to schedule the classes, right? You need to go out and find the classes you like and do them. You have the flexibility to have whatever group of friends you like, but you need to go out and find those friends and create those connections. You have the flexibility to take internships and external opportunities. You need to go out and find those internships and apply to them. And that's part of the I think the fast track of EAP is it gets you to be independent and searching for opportunities much faster than a high school student.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, so this is a more specific question to you.
Sure.
There aren't a lot of EAPsters on political science, pre-law, or social science tracks, so if you're so inclined, please give a little spiel about why you do what you do, what you would tell someone that's trying to decide whether or not to go into these fields. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and you're right. There are not as many pre-law or political science or humanities, majors or alumni in EAP as one would imagine, and that has been a problem. But that also means that the ones that are there, we all know each other very well, and it's a pretty connected network. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you want help on any like pre-law, humanities, social sciences advisement. But okay, so I originally chose it because I was interested in history for the longest time in high school. But straight up history does not have great job prospects. You don't earn a lot of money in history. So I was also very interested in politics and debating and public policy, and advocacy and all of these things. And that's obviously political science. So that's why I mentioned the double major political science history. But I ended up minoring in history, so political science has really taken the stage. And the law is because law is the best way to transition into a career in public service or public policy is through a law degree. So that's an explanation of like why I'm doing specifically pre-law, why I'm doing that. But considerations you as like a new student would have to make is, well, first of all, just like any other major, do you want to do it, right? It helps 1,000 times if you really want to do your major, if you enjoy the classes. It's night and day difference between classes you don't want to do and classes you do want to do. You'll be there, you'll sit there, you'll take the notes, which is not what you sometimes might do for other classes. So take a major you really love. Don't feel daunted by the fact that maybe not a lot of your peers are doing it, right? None of my peers were doing it, but I didn't feel like that was blocking me. So, but I know that could, make it feel like I don't want to do this. I want to do something that everyone else is doing. It'll be easier to kind of follow the path if everyone else is doing it. But that's absolutely not true. And even if all of your peers maybe in your year are not doing it, there are again a lot of us in the upper years, alumni who absolutely have done it and would be happy to help you out. So that's another very important consideration. And then the final consideration is there are a lot of skills that social science teaches you, and the skills that they teach you are a lot more subtle than the skills STEM teaches you,
Right.
in terms of being able to read fast, write well, create arguments, and this is stuff that's going to be useful in any career. So I would say that don't think of it as I know we always talk about I'm a history guy, right? I've heard this a million times. How does history help? How does political science help learning it? It's not the act of personally, if you want the personal benefit, it's not the act of learning history. Although if you enjoy that, you should do it, which I do. But it's also the act of I can read now. I can analyze arguments from different periods of time and synthesize these. I can create conclusions based on evidence, right? And that's going to be useful in any career you want to take on. So that's another very useful skill that the social sciences can provide you. That I'm not saying STEM doesn't provide you, but it's a very useful benefit specifically to the social sciences. So long story short, if you want to do political science or history or English or anything like that, don't feel disturbed by the fact that not a lot of your peers are doing it. Reach out to anyone you can for help. We all want to help each other because we've all been where you are. and make sure it's something you enjoy, and make sure you really want to do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I think that will be really impactful on anyone who's watching that is considering that sort of track.
I think in my honors academy there was only the peer mentors we had in our year, and I think there was only one or two who were doing something that wasn't a STEM field. One was minoring in history, and one was, I think, majoring in political science. So again, it's daunting sometimes, but don't lose confidence.
So tell me more about your interests within the field of political science.
Yeah. So political science is a much more broad field than you might imagine. There's things like political philosophy, political theory, where it's much more, theorizing how we create government or how government works. There's the pre-law track. There's the international politics track. I'm most interested in the pre-law track for obvious reasons, going to law school. But I've also been very interested in public policy, and I like those big guiding questions of what are we doing that shapes the economy? What are we doing that shapes healthcare? How can we benefit the most people with these policies? I like debating policies a lot, right? Political debates, I love that. I love advocacy work. I love, seeing these are the needs of this community. How do we meet them, right? The A to B, yeah. So that is like specifically what I like to do within political science, and I think the pre-law track really fits into that with the legal career and all of that. But that's not to say I know, like my own mentor, Ryan, from the year above me, he was the political science guy who was like helping me with my own track. He was much more political theory than I was. And that's more, again, political philosophy and thinking about it. It's just whatever you want to do, and whatever really appeals to you. Ultimately, the concentrations don't matter, right? It's the major political science that really matters. But yeah, that my personal interest is in advocacy, policy. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you want to talk about? I know you said that you wanted to double major but couldn't because of the credit limit. Do you also want to talk a little bit more about your interest in history?
Yeah. History is my original love in terms of like the subject I originally used to like excel in and really love. I would say I've enjoyed my history classes maybe more on average than my political science classes. Although the political science classes I've taken with the professors I love, those have been, out of the park. But the history classes have been amazing. Every single one I've really wanted to show up. I've really wanted to learn. Both departments have amazing professors, by the way. But yeah, history's always been a love for me just because I like learning about the past. I like the aspect of looking at historical parallels, how history repeats itself. And that's very prescient in today's world where we're thinking about, democracy and how it's being, subverted. I know that was a big question. And then we look back at, past times when democracy has been subverted. And that's just one example of the many times history can provide us a lesson. And it is a reason we should learn it, right? Because it's a useful lens into our future, not just our past.
Wow.
I got lines for days.
That's really awesome. So you are the vice president of ASI, Calcele student body. Tell me about why you chose to take up this role and what exactly your duties as vice president are.
Yeah, so the specific vice president I am, we have 4 vice presidents. I think we're probably going to cut that down. I don't know how late in the future you're going to see this, but there might be one vice president in the future. But I'm the vice president for external affairs and advancement, and that means I deal with everything that's not within ASI, within the student government. So I deal with creating connections with campus partners like other campus organizations, like the cross-cultural centers, the Dreamers Resource Center. I deal with civic engagement, so registering students to vote. I had an NVRD shirt, but they didn't want me to wear it because it's a bad color for the camera. But National Voter Registration Day, getting students civically engaged. Then advocacy, so we go to conferences and we meet with the student governments of the other CSU campuses and work out what are the problems facing all of our students and how do we advocate to fix those. And we meet with legislators in Sacramento to discuss the bills that are going to be affecting CSU students. We talk with other campus leadership to work on joint initiatives that can help both our campuses. So it's a lot of work that involves the external facing and the kind of, again, more like public policy kind of thing. And that's of course why I like to do it, is because it's the end goal for someone who wants to do public policy. And
Right.
yeah, so I entered ASI originally because student government and someone who likes government, right? It's a perfect mix. I entered as an associate justice under Ryan Yu. He was the chief justice at the time, so he was a great mentor to me in learning the ropes of student government. It's complicated to get the hang of it at first, but once you've been in it for a while, it starts to flow. It starts to flow easily. So I spent some time as chief justice, and then vice president for administration, and then vice president for external affairs. So I spent a lot of time in student government. I know a lot about it. I'm absolutely happy to give advice, tips, and tricks on that. I've spent so long in it. Please ask me, actually, because I have so much knowledge that needs to be unloaded. So, yeah, that's ASI is probably like the biggest constant throughout my college career has been ASI. That's the one thing that's always been in the background that I've always been doing. So, and it's fun. You get to travel. All the conference costs are paid for, so it's free. And you get to engage if you like public policy. You get to engage with it in the real world. So.
Yeah, I think if your passion is embedded in your job, then you are going to make a big impact.
Yeah.
And you said you had some things that you wanted to spill and overflowing with like advice.
Yes.
Is there any like general advice that you would give
for ASI?
Yeah, right now.
I don't know if I want it. I would say for ASI the main thing is not, they say the committees are the main thing, but the main thing is this is like very technical. I don't think anyone who's like entering EEPC is gonna get this, but it's all about the work you do outside of the committees and making sure those results get put into your biweekly reports, which is how you get paid. So that's like the main thing that you have to do in ASI. It's not the committee meetings, although you have to show up for those. But there's a lot of like niche aspects to how ASI functions and works. They have Robert's Rules of Order, which is how committees are run. You have to ask for motions. You have to call the meeting to order. All of that. So there's a lot of like niche things that it's very helpful when you're jumping in to have someone who can help you and teach you all the ropes so that you're not learning it as you go. But there's a bunch of weird things. Our budget process, how our policies are revised, how we work with campus partners. We have a bunch of weird procedures that you would never know why they're like that. There's like there was an interesting branding thing where CSULA, you can't call it CSULA, you have to call it Cal State LA because that's the official branding. So I learned that through ASI. So there's like a bunch of weird things, but yeah, ASI teaches you a bunch of things about the campus too. So, and I would say, yeah, definitely not just for Pols majors, definitely not for just social science majors. If you're interested in STEM too, there are a lot of positions that can help you. So
yeah, if there's anyone in ASI or that wants to be in ASI or going into ASI, reach out to Sasha. He's more than happy to help. So I know that you are a tutor with Teach for America. Tell me about that. What's that like? How did you get into it?
Yeah, that is because tutoring has always been, like, since middle school, it's always been something I like to do. I like to explain things. I like to teach. I love the sound of my own voice. So it combines the best of all worlds. So I joined the tutoring because it was, I don't know how, I can't remember how I heard about it, but it specifically connects tutors with students in low-income schools across the nation who are struggling to maintain those standards in English and math, and you help them like reach those standards again. And that's very important because when you lay the groundwork in the lower grades, of course, that's what translates to success in the upper grades. So that's like the altruistic reason I did it, and then the personal reason is just I love tutoring. I love working with students. I love, the thing I've always said is I love when you explain a concept and the students' eyes like light up when they finally get it. I love that. So it's very fun. It's a very rewarding experience. I've been doing it since fall of last year, so 2 years. It's the second year I've been doing it. So it's time intensive, and it's the one thing I can never drop. If I'm feeling unwell, I'll drop an ASI meeting, right? If I'm feeling unwell, I'll call out sick from classes. You can't drop on the kids, right? You can't skip a class meeting. So that's like the one constant, and it's not really something you should be taking as a casual kind of thing. So
right, yeah.
But it's very fun, and you get paid, so that's nice. But it's not much, so don't like join for the money. But
right,
it's fun. It's fun. So if you're into tutoring, I would definitely recommend looking at the Ignite Fellowship at Teach for America.
Awesome. I've also heard that another pretty cool thing that you've done is that you were an intern at the office of Gavin Newsom, our governor, and that's definitely an ear-catching title. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so that one, and this is where I unload the wisdom of why you should always go for things, even if you think you can't get them. But the governor's internship lasted 10 weeks. It ended 4 or 5 weeks ago. It was a great experience. I interned with the External Affairs Division of the governor's office, which is basically the division that makes the governor look good. And I got that originally because of the Pat Brown Institute for Public Affairs on this campus is the government institute that connects people with government jobs and government opportunities. They had the Galbraith Fellowship, and it had an 18+ age limit, and I wasn't 18. But I knew the people who worked in the Pat Brown Institute through ASI, through being in the Vice President for External Affairs role last fall. And I asked them, and I said, is there a way you can make an exception? Because I turn 18 in like 4 months, and
Right.
it's unreasonable that I'm not 18 at the start of the fellowship, so I don't get to do any of the fellowship when I've shown an interest in public policy, and I think I would really be a great fit for this. And they waived the exception. They waived the rule, and they let me apply, and I got the job. So that's why don't let the 18+ thing stop you. Go for it and email people and create connections, and try as best you can to seek out those opportunities, and don't let 18+ stop you unless I don't know, it's a bar. But that opportunity was great because it's not just writing and reading like public policy. It's not the nitty-gritty of reading laws and going through them. It's also meeting with stakeholders, like people the governor works with, meeting community organizations who have a stake in what the governor's doing, meeting other elected officials like the mayor's team in LA or the county supervisors in LA who work with the governor, right? So you get to meet people, you get to learn about the state in general. I learned about the California budgeting process a lot. So it's a mix of everything. And from there, if you do the external affairs, you can learn what specifically you like. Do you like meeting with stakeholders? Do you like engaging with the policy research, the nitty gritty? Or do you like, the budget? And you can figure out what you like and you can go from there. So I really like that experience. It's probably one of the most rewarding experiences I've had so far. I made some great connections too. I met some great fellow interns. My supervisor was amazing. And so from there, that's what really sparked my interest in California government and politics. So that's something that I really want to return to in my career now because of that fellowship. So it was really fun. It was really enjoyable. If anyone has any questions about that, absolutely happy to help with that as well because that was a very fun experience for me.
Of course, yeah. I think that's really important message. Like, as EEPsters, there are a lot of age boundaries, but I think if you don't do that attempt of reaching out and saying, maybe, like, we're in a very particular situation. It's very special, so I think you could potentially miss out on, like you said, these things that you might want to do for the rest of your life.
Right, exactly.
So you seem to be heavily involving yourself in, or beginning to involve yourself in politics. Do you want to talk more about your political aspirations?
Yeah, so long-term goals is politics, I think, for me. I think originally it was really fun. It was really enjoyable. If anyone has any questions about that, absolutely happy to help with that.
Okay.
Alright. My bad. What else?
Okay, I think it's okay. When did it break?
Yeah.
What?
When did it die?
Nothing's checking
Yeah.
it out.
I think it's still going. It reopened when I turned on my computer. I don't know why my computer turned off.
To the camera.
Oh, I stopped at long-term goals of politics.
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine, yeah.
That's
What? Oh.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's
Long-term goals in politics is like the last question.
yeah, and then
Oh,
like
there's like a lot.
interests, and then that's it.
Ancient? Yeah, I got what
The crime, where I said I love crime.
Right.
Yeah. We'll run it back.
We're gonna stage it again. You guys have to laugh again the same way.
Wait, where did it
Like
stop?
long-term goals, ambitions, whatever.
I don't know what that. Political aspirations.
That.
And then I talked about motivation.
Like, where did it stop after I answered that or before I answered that?
Like around where you answered that.
Thanks, Milton.
Like you didn't finish the answer.
Okay.
Okay, it's okay. We'll make it work in post.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay. You're good.
Wait. So.
Exactly recreate it.
Frame by frame.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just go from where we left off.
I still don't understand where we left off.
Political aspirations.
Okay.
The one where you said like, what are the congratulations on the bachelor's degree?
What are your political aspirations?
Something
No,
like that?
I said that was the motivation question.
Oh.
I said so. You seem to be heavily involving yourself in politics.
What was the one where I answered like long term and short term? Right, like I was like long term.
What do you plan to do after graduation?
That might be it.
Yeah.
School.
Yeah, we'll just pick up from there.
Is it?
Okay,
Sure.
it's-
Yeah, it's
that's
alright.
fine.
It's alright.
Give them some ending content. Okay, so what do you plan to do after graduation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, that I'm hearing for the first time. What do I plan to do after graduation? So, law school. So, I'm going to be going to law school next semester. I don't know which one. So, originally I thought after law school I was going to directly go into a government job or a public interest is what they call it in law school, public interest job. But I'm not so sure now because I saw the starting salaries that you make in private law. And I'm just thinking, you spend a couple years there, you pay off the loans, you go into public interest, it's a lot more doable. But it's up in the air, and there are definitely. I want to live in California, and I don't know if you can do that on a public interest salary.
Mhm.
So that's something I'm considering. But it's. I'm happy that I have the choices of law schools that I have, and I'm happy that I'm going to law school. It's going to be an amazing experience. It's going to be a very fun experience. And I love EEP, but going to law school is also going to be like a new college experience, right? And it's going to kind of reset that balance where I'm no longer in a unique program that's carved out. I'm in the general student population as a student. So that'll be a cool experience to see. And then after law school, I want to practice law for a few years, either public or private, like I mentioned. And then really long term is politics. And I'm sure I've mentioned that multiple times throughout the stream. So, but I want to go into politics, preferably statewide office. Oh yeah, then I said, but I'll take congressman if they give it to me. Yeah, I remember that. The really end goal utopian is after I retire from politics, I would like to be a professor because I like I said I love teaching, and college students are, I feel, it's a different class of teaching from my peers here or from younger students in elementary school. So that would be just a cool switch up as well. So I love you guys too, but college students but professor salary, I don't know if I can live in California again on that. So the dream is politics for like my career, I retire, and then professorship as a light thing. That's the utopia.
Okay, so I believe